Hello, thank you for tuning in. My name is Nehru. You are tuned in to The Encourager, and I want to just share what's probably fairly, well, maybe to many of us, some fairly obvious news, and that is, at least here in America, how the entertainment world, specifically movies and television, has emasculated the man or the male here in America. And so some of the shows that I'm going to mention, I've watched myself, but this is I don't know exactly when the majority of it started. So of course there was a time, when you think about the golden age of television. So we're talking 20s, 30s, 40s, right? Maybe 50s, golden age of television. Men were not portrayed. They were the advisors. They were the leaders of their family. When you think of shows like Leave It to Beaver, when you think about shows like Father Knows Best, you think about these shows. The male was portrayed as the leader of the family. At some point, that changed. I don't know exactly when, and I know that although in Three's Company, John Ritter, he was not a father in that he was a single man, but he was really I don't know, a doofus, I guess, for lack of a better term. It's publicly, politically incorrect, I'm sure. But he was this clumsy kind of character, And so I'm talking about the shows now. I mentioned shows, I think about shows from when I was a child that I grew up watching, okay? So I think about Good Times and JJ, and how JJ was portrayed as, again, awkward kind of male, okay? And then so more modern shows, so which it's in the 90s, in 2000s it became even more prevalent. Very few shows showed a male figure being the leader of the family in that way. When you consider the marriage of, married and children and all that sort of thing. And speaking of which, married with children or married with kids. What was the name of Damon Wayans and Tisha Campbell Martin's show? Married with no, it was something else. Married with Children was the '80s sitcom, of course. But and again, Al Bundy, he was portrayed as this man who worked at a shoe store who just really couldn't get it all together, right? Constantly making mistakes, and kind of never got anything right, so to speak, and always kind of reliving his glory days of high school football. And so other shows, My Wife and Kids is the name of that show. Yes, so that's one of the few shows that over the last 20 years shows a male figure in a leadership role within the family. But most of these shows, so according to Jim, The King of Queens, Everybody Loves Raymond, these shows, although funny, and again, I've enjoyed them, I've laughed at them, I've watched many of their episodes, but again, talking about the emasculation of the American male, these shows depict this heavily, and how the male figure is incapable of leading their family, incapable of making logical decisions, not emotional decisions, logical decisions. First of all, no decision should be made emotionally, especially concerning a serious matter, because the emotions change That's why, and love changes. That's why love alone is not enough for a marriage. You need more than that. Your lives, your purposes, your reasons for breathing need to be married together. It's not wise that an atheist marry someone who believes in divine source. That's probably not going to work. There's a reason why. There's a reason why it doesn't. A lazy man that marries a woman who, and again, lazy. A stay-at-home dad is not the same as a lazy man. Okay, stay-at-home dad can still lead his family and educate the children, homeschool the children, whatever the arrangement can be that the two agree on, right? So just because you are a stay-at-home dad doesn't mean that that you are not fulfilling your role in that way. And by the way, the church, the religiousness of church, and the misinterpretation of scripture says that a woman is to be submissive to her man, or is to submit to her husband. That is completely thrown out of proportion when it comes to marriage and what that truly means, just like being unequally yoked does. Okay, so what being submissive means, and I've mentioned it in another video, is not just the woman. The man also must be submissive to the woman, because any man who believes that he is the answer and the only answer, that man is due to suffer great loss in his life, in relationships, in business. He just is, because he's operating from the ego, and that will never, ever, ever yield the fruit that he desires, which is whatever it is: happiness, joy, prosperity, more money, promotion, whatever that is. It'll never produce that. And if it does, then it's going to continue to be falsified as he continues through life, and eventually there's going to be a tower. Okay? And that tower moment is going to come when he falls from grace. Okay? And so, again, those shows and many others show the male figure. I'm thinking about, it's a childhood movie. I'm thinking about Parenthood with Steve Martin. And I love that movie. It's a great movie. It really, really is. So even though he attempts to go above and beyond to satisfy his son for his son's birthday, he makes all these promises that he can't fulfill, and has to find hilarious ways to keep his son happy, or to bring about these wishes that his son has for his birthday. Many of these shows have, I believe, true effects on the male today when it comes to the structure of the family. So again, man, being submissive to your wife is an absolute necessity. When you look at the marriages that have lasted for decades, and when I say for decades, I mean successful marriages, not just being in a relationship because of the kids. I would never stay married to a woman because of the kids, because I have to stay in love, even though love changes in and of itself. That passion and that our lives are connected purpose, that never dies, if it's true, if it's your true divine counterpart. Right? If you've someone you married for status, then you're already starting off on rocky ground, right? It's already unstable. Okay? So I'm not talking about those situations. I'm talking about when you are joined to your divine counterpart, the one that you were married to by divine source before you were birthed here. Okay? And there is such a person. That person's called your divine counterpart. People use soulmate as a general statement, but there is a difference between a divine counterpart, a soulmate, and a twin flame. Okay? Those are three different connections and three different types of relationships. Okay? So in that, society has dumbed down man. Right? Also, the court has had a place in this. So I don't know what the statistics are today. I am a numbers guy. I tend to remember numbers very easily. whether it's my debit card numbers or account number. I remember those things very easily. Numbers just come very easily to me. Okay, I've been an accountant for the last 13 years, but I'm phasing out of that occupation. But so numbers come very, very easily to me for as far as remembering. However, it also lended itself well in history class. That was the only class in high school, even before going to college, which I really didn't do until after I got out of the military. I did not have to study history. If I paid attention in class, I would get A's on history tests just from remembrance, because a lot of it deals with dates. Okay, so again, numbers just something that came very easily to me. Other things did not come as easy for me, including algebra, because you're dealing with letters, right? So I had to study algebra because it's not just numbers. Okay, so anyway, yes. So where was I going? Oh, so yes. So submitting ourselves to them, because we are males, we do not always have the correct answer. Okay, and so if we look at the marriages that are truly successful, that continue to prosper, right, where both are really truly happy, right, you will see and you will notice in those marriages, if you talk to the men and the women, they will tell you there's plenty of times when they are wrong and they have to take their wives' advice. Okay, so again, there's a yin and yang there, and we all have both male and female energy, just like we all have a godly and lawless side. Okay, we all have that. We all have the angel and the devil on our shoulder, right? So we all have the masculine and the feminine energy. If you follow tarot, or if you listen, or if you have had tarot readings or what have you, you understand that spiritually that is true. There's a divine feminine and there's a divine masculine energy. And we male and females, men and women, carry both. One is more dominant than the other in everyone, but we all carry both. It's like X and Y chromosomes. We all carry both. However, there's a certain amount that would make you a female and a certain amount of those that are going to make you a male. And it's a combination of both of those. Okay? So, this emasculating that the entertainment industry has done of the male has really played a number on the men and their role in society in general, but more specifically, when it comes to being a father and when it comes to being a husband. Okay, so I was going to mention that the court system, the legal system, has gotten involved. It's not a justice system, because justice often goes unserved. So it's a legal system. Even if the individual is convicted, you can't tell me that someone who unalives someone innocently in a car, well, not innocently, when I say I mean the victim's innocent, and let's say a drive-by shooting and that innocent child over there that gets unalived, or that woman or that man, that individual ends up serving months or even a couple of years. There is no way that's a justice system. That's a legal system. And shit, excuse my language, falls through the cracks all the time. Okay? So even in the court system, and I'm going to give you, again, I use myself as an example if I can, because I believe that's the purest form of an example that I can offer, because I've lived with myself at this point in time for 48 plus years. So I can speak directly and from a front row seat perspective when it comes to my life. So my first wife, for those of you who haven't listened to My Father, Your King, those videos, those posts here on this channel, my father was a polygamist for 30-something years, and while I was stationed in Germany and waiting for my wife and daughter to come over, my assumed daughter at this point, to come over to join me in Germany. Him and his polygamous women, concubines, whatever you want to call them, mistresses. They weren't mistresses because they were all aware of each other, but decided that they were going to lure my wife in at that time, my former wife, in at that time, and she became a part of their cult. And that's a true story. The book, My Father, Your King, is due to be released on the first week of next month. That is 8/4 of 2023. And so it will go into his story, not mine. I will probably be writing another book that covers my view, my perspective, and me growing up in that situation, what I saw, what I heard, what I felt, what was hidden, what I knew but was attempted to be hidden. It'll go into my perspective more so. But this is My Father, Your King. That book is his story, and it's going to be originally released on Amazon Kindle. And again, that's on 8/4, which it can be pre-ordered. It is set up for pre-orders, so that can be done. So anyway, so back to my personal situation. So when we were going through the divorce, her and I, she was already living with him, by the way, and I've forgiven him long ago. In fact, I was still talking to him and going over his house, even though she was still there, literally in his house. Okay, so some might say that's a fool, but to me, that's unconditional love, and that's the healing part of me. That's who I am, and so I've forgiven him, her, them, etc. But when we went to court and we were going through the divorce proceedings, and it really wasn't much. I was exiting the military and just kind of getting reestablished in the civilian sector at that time. But when we went to court before the judge, I mentioned to the judge that she was in a polygamous situation and also had our daughter in that situation. And I was concerned that the man in that situation was at some point going to be making sexual advances towards this child. And sure enough, of course, he ended up making those sexual advances when she became a teenager, before the FBI busted down his door in Ohio. Again, all of that's going to be covered in the book. And so I told the judge that it didn't matter to me what happened to her, but I strongly encouraged the judge to consider that little girl at that time. And at that time she was 7, 6 or 7. And the judge said, "We're not here to discuss that." That's what the judge said, right? And gave her full legal custody. Okay? So, this is how the legal system in America sees the man, even though the man, and this isn't always, but I don't know what the statistics are, but it's a very, even if the woman is on drugs, there's proof of that, can't hold a job, if there's proof of that, is involved in another abusive relationship, is proof of that. Even with all of these things, the legal system tends to favor the woman when it comes to the children. So, this is the reason why. Because Americans' view of the male generally is that he's incapable of caring for the children. Okay? Which, again, is just something that's been watered time and time again. So that tree just continues to grow. It's a weed. That weed just continues to grow and prosper. Okay? So in that situation, she got full legal custody, physical custody of her. And for a little while, not long, for a little while, I had free reign. I could pick her up whenever I wanted to. And again, going to the very man's house to pick her up who took my wife from me. Okay? And again, I wasn't malice. I wasn't anything. I was angry initially when I got the letter in Germany, but this is years later. And by that time, I had cooled off. Okay? So with that, she stayed with her mother and continued to be dragged all over the country, mainly Florida, Georgia, Ohio, and Michigan, right? Running after this man and being a part of this cult, this polygamous family. So, I'm gonna ask you a question. In that situation, what do you believe was best for that child? To remain in that polygamous situation where she ended up dressing up in lingerie and dancing for a child molester who's now serving 44 to 66 years in prison for getting a 15-year-old pregnant, or to be with her father, unconditional love, and one who's certainly not going to do anything of the sort. Certainly, right? Never, right? And so, again, this is just one of the examples, and my very own example, of how America has emasculated the male figure in the family, and how it has leaked into the court system. And I'm not the only example. There are numerous examples of how women end up abusing or unaliving their children. And this is not for women. Men do it too, right? It's not just women, right? But I'm a male, and I'm speaking specifically to the emasculation of men in America through the entertainment system, or through entertainment. And so again, anything that I say, it could go both ways, because again, there is a balance. There is a yin and yang. Men are not the only serial murderers, right? However, the majority of men, or unalivers, I don't know if, I guess that's okay to say on YouTube, or unalivers. But then you do have those individuals. They're nurses, they're caregivers, that they unalive 100+ people in a nursing home. You have the Eileen Warnoses, right up the road. I'm in Florida, right up the road in Daytona, right? Serial killer, 7 men, right? So it's not a blanket statement, because all of it happens on both sides. There's abuse from men and abuse from women, towards kids, towards new lovers, what have you, right? That happens, right? So, however, in my situation, it's fairly clear to see how she would have been better off. Instead of, after the FBI busted down the door, she ended up in Ohio State custody for the next several years until she became 18, and then she was released to her mother, right? Or 17 and released to her mother. So all of these things, maybe even before that she was, because she did not want to come with me, because she had been brainwashed for the last 7 years leading up to that point, when I was trying to track them down and did not know where they were. Come to find out, they were in Ohio, okay? So, again, submission goes both ways, men and women, okay? And women are just as capable of wonderful things like men are. Men are just as capable of wonderful things and acts and deeds, caring for their children, as women are, right? Men are nurturing. Women are nurturing, right? You have some women out there who are more masculine than men, right? Again, because we carry both, okay? And you have men who are more feminine than women. And when I say that, I'm not speaking of homosexuality, okay? That's not what I'm speaking of. I'm speaking of the energy of the person. So someone who is a high empath, someone who offers unconditional love, that individual is probably a divine feminine. A divine masculine female would be someone who likes to call the shots. Okay, someone who is used to being in control or wants to be in control. That is a divine masculine, and again, that could be a male or a female. Okay, so there are numerous examples of how America continues to dumb down the male figure in family, and that continues to tarnish family and continues to keep families from being the loving, nurturing, safe haven and unit that it really was originally supposed to be. Okay, and so perhaps you have your own experience of where you dealt with the court system, and they and the judgment went one way, which turned out to be not in the best interest of the children, such as myself, the situation, my example, right? And if so, feel free, if you're comfortable enough to, feel free to share that. But again, there is a change that's needed here when it comes to the men and their position in the family. Today I am single, and celibate, by the way, and have been for quite some time. And again, that's me. I'm not saying you have to do that. That's me. That's for my own spirituality and my own enlightenment and my own awakening and my own ascending and my own spiritual growth. I've chosen that route. I'm not saying you have to do that, men or women. I'm not saying you have to do that. That's the road I've chosen. But there has to be a change in order for the truth of what the family was originally intended to be, which is all those things I named and then some, from the beginning of time. Okay? And so, again, you've been listening to Nehru, and you have been tuned into The Encourager. Thank you so much again for listening. Again, feel free to add in your insight into this. Men, if you've experienced the emasculation, or women, if you've experienced it, where the man, right? You've experienced a situation where the man wasn't the best choice for the child, but the judgment went in their favor, and it turned out to be a toxic situation, or the situation that certainly wasn't the best for the children. Okay? Thanks so much again. Look forward to sharing with you the next time that I am on, and be encouraged.